You're welcome to Learn French with KB. In today's video for junior high school level 1, we are going to learn how to describe someone. It could be your family member, your friend, or even a famous person. Knowing how to describe appearance and personality is very essential. And in this video, we will be covering useful vocabulary, simple sentence structures, and practical examples that you can start using right away.
They had this amazing, vibrant red hair, almost like clay, and these really cool forest green glasses.
To describe someone, we will do that by the help of two very important verbs, and that is the verb être, and the verb avoir. These are the two verbs that are going to help us in our descriptions. Être is used to indicate who, what, how someone is with respect to his or her state of being. Avoir, on the other hand, is used to indicate what someone has with reference to specific body parts. And so if we want to describe someone looking at his or her state of being, or who, what, how that person is, we will use être. And if we are making reference to specific body parts, then we will be using avoir. So these are the two verbs that we'll be using to make our descriptions: être and avoir. Now, être and avoir in themselves are in their original unconjugated state, and so to be able to use them, we would need to conjugate them. So to conjugate être and avoir, beginning with être, we say je suis, which translates to I am in English. Tu es, which also translates to you are in English. Elle est, which translates to he is in English. Elle est, that means she is. Nous sommes, which also means we are. Vous êtes, that is you are, talking about the second person plural sense. Elles sont, they are, talking about a group of boys or males only, or men only, or a mixture of the two, male and female. Then finally we have elles sont, that makes reference to females only. Let's revise. Je suis, tu es, elle est, elle est, nous sommes, nous sommes, vous êtes, vous êtes, elles sont, and finally, elles sont, elles sont. To conjugate avoir, we have j'ai, j'ai, tu as, tu as, elle a, elle a, elle a, elle a, nous avons, nous avons, vous avez, vous avez, elles ont, elles ont, elles ont, elles ont. So, j'ai translates to I have. That is the first person singular. Tu as translates to you have, second person singular. Elle a translates to he has. That is the third person singular. Then we have elle a, she has, third person singular. Then we have nous avons, we have, first person plural. Vous avez, you have, second person plural. Elles ont, they have, third person plural. Elles ont, they have, also third person plural. Now take notice of elles ont, which is making reference to only males, a group of only males, a group of boys, or a mixture, a group of males and females together. And elles sont, on the other hand, is making reference to a group of females only. Females only. Now, since we are describing someone which is in the third person singular sense, the most appropriate aspects of être and avoir we'll be using will be elle est, and elle a, So I want you to take notice of that. Have it at the back of your mind. These are the conjugated forms of être and avoir we'll be using in our descriptions. Now, having learned how to conjugate the two verbs that are going to help us in our descriptions, we will quickly get into what we will be learning to describe today. In today's video, we'll be learning how to describe, in order of preference, les cheveux et les yeux. Les cheveux et les yeux. That is hair and eyes. Hair and eyes. We also learn how to describe la taille et la corpulence. La taille et la corpulence. That is height and build. Height and build. And then we will learn to describe le caractère. Le caractère. That is character and personality. Character and personality. So we'll begin with les cheveux et les yeux. The hair and eyes. Now let's move on to describe hair and eyes. To describe hair and eyes, you would agree with me that the auxiliary verb to use will be avoir. This is because what we will be describing makes reference to specific body parts. Now, the appropriate conjugated form of avoir we'll be using for the males will be LA, and that for the females will be LA. So we have LA and LA. So to describe hair, you can use expressions like elle a les cheveux blonds. Elle a les cheveux blonds. Elle a les cheveux bouclés. Elle a les cheveux bouclés. Elle a les cheveux roux. Elle a les cheveux roux. Elle a les cheveux raides. Elle a les cheveux raides. Let's take that again. Elle a les cheveux blonds. Elle a les cheveux bouclés. Elle a les cheveux roux. Elle a les cheveux raides. So those are the expressions, some of the expressions you can use to describe someone's hair. It also works in the same way for the females. So if you want to describe a girl or a lady's hair, you can use expressions like elle a les cheveux blonds. Elle a les cheveux blonds. Elle a les cheveux bouclés. Elle a les cheveux bouclés. Elle a les cheveux roux. Elle a les cheveux roux. And finally, elle a les cheveux raides. Elle a les cheveux raides. That is to describe hair. If you want to describe eyes, we can say elle a les yeux bleus. Elle a les yeux bleus. Elle a les yeux verts. Elle a les yeux verts. Elle a les yeux marrons. Elle a les yeux marrons. Elle a les yeux noirs. Elle a les yeux noirs. The same applies to the females. So, elle a les yeux bleus. Elle a les yeux bleus. Elle a les yeux verts. Elle a les yeux verts. Elle a les yeux marrons. Elle a les yeux marrons. And elle a les yeux noirs. Elle a les yeux noirs. So these are some of the expressions you can use to describe hair and eyes of a person. Observe the words how they are spelled, how they are used. Now let's move on to describe height and build of a person. Now, to describe the height and build of a person, la taille et la corpulence. Since we are talking about the state of being of that person, we will be using être, and the conjugated form appropriate for the third person singular for males will be elle, and that for the females will be elle. And so to describe a person referencing his or her height and build, some expressions or vocabulary we can use are elle est grand, which translates to he is tall, he is tall, he is tall. And for the females, we can say elle est grande, elle est grande. So I want you to take notice of the E added to grand. So for the females, there is an extra E added to grand, but for the males, there is no E. Take notice of that. So elle est grand, elle est grande, grande. We can also say elle est petit, elle est petit. And for the females, we say elle est petite, elle est petite. You notice an E added to petit in the females. We say elle est mince, elle est mince. For the females, we say elle est mince, elle est mince. So you will notice that in the female and the males, with respect to men's, no extra E was added. This is because men's in its form, original form, ends with an E, and so there wouldn't be the need to add an extra E when describing for the females. So for the males, we say elle est mince. For the females, we say elle est mince. We can also use this expression to describe height and build. Elle est musclée, elle est musclée, elle est musclée. For the females, we say elle est musclée, elle est musclée, elle est musclée. Now, you will notice something interesting over here. You realize that though musclé being used to describe the males ends with an E, but for that of the females an extra E was added. But in the case of men's, both E's were maintained and no extra E was added. So here's the trick. Muscler has an E which is sounded or accented. In the case of men's, the E is silent, and so in both cases, men's is maintained with E. The E in men's is maintained. But with muscler, since the E is accented, there would be the need for an extra E in that of the females. So the simple trick is, if the E is silent as in men's, it is maintained in both cases. But if the E is accented as in muscler, there would be the need for an extra E to complement the word to describe the females. Take notice of that as well. So let's revise the vocabulary once more. We say elle est grande, elle est grande, elle est petite, elle est petite, elle est mince, elle est mince, elle est musclée, elle est musclée. Observe the words, how they are spelled, and how we use them in the case of the females, in the case of the males. Alright, so let's move to the final description we'll be making, and that is the character, describing the character of someone. To describe the character or personality of someone, we can use expressions like elle est, for males, and elle est for females. Now, since we are talking about who or what someone is, his or her state of being, you understand why we are going for verb être, conjugated forms of verb être in the third person singular. So we can say elle est sympa, elle est sympa, elle est sympa. You can also say L-E senpai. L-E senpai. L-E senpai. L-E drôle. L-E drôle. L-E drôle. L-E drôle. L-E drôle. L-E drôle. L-E intelligent. L-E intelligent. L-E intelligente. L-E intelligente. Now you should take notice of the extra E added to intelligent in describing the character of a female. So L-E intelligent, L-E intelligent. So the same rule as encountered earlier works here as well. In the case of role, because of the silent E, it is maintained in describing the female as well. But take notice of senpai as well. Senpai remains the same in all descriptions, whether for the male or female. Quite an exception to the E rule. And lastly, we can say L-E méchant. L-E méchant. I'm sure you would be able to guess what the feminine counterpart of méchant will be. So that will be L-E méchante with an E. L-E méchante. So L-E méchant, L-E méchante. Take note of the words and how they work and how they are being used. Right, let's look at some example descriptions of people. So let's look at an example description of someone, and it reads: Voici Kofi, elle est grande, elle a les cheveux bruns et les yeux noirs, elle est très sympa. Let's take that again. Voici Kofi, elle est grande, elle a les cheveux bruns et les yeux noirs, elle est très sympa. So this is an example description of Kofi right here, and that will translate to: here is Kofi. He is tall, he has brown hair and dark eyes. He is a very nice person. Right, let's look at another description. So here is an example description of another person, and it reads: Voici Ama. Elle est petite. Elle a les cheveux bruns et les yeux noirs. Elle est très gentille. Let's take that again. Voici Ama. Elle est petite. Elle a les cheveux bruns et les yeux noirs. Elle est très gentille. Alright, so that's also an example description for Ama. Let us move on to some grammar notes and hints and work on a few exercises. We'll close the chapter on this lesson.